Over the years, there have been countless discussions, debates about who's the greatest drummer, keyboard player, bassist, but most of all, the argument people love to get into the most is who's the greatest guitarist. People get very, very passionate about this topic, and I've even seen fistfights occur. But in reality, it's a question that has no answer. And here's my reasoning. I think it was David Gilmour who once said, once you reach a certain level, there's only a cigarette paper between us all. Most players at the top level can play pretty much anything you care to throw at them. I saw a debate recently about Jimmy Page versus Ritchie Blackmore, and quite a few of the comments were along the lines of that Page couldn't play what Blackmore plays, and vice versa. Okay, when they improvise, sure, they will have their own unique stamp on that, but technically not being able to play each other's music? No. I did try and point out this. So you have all these tribute bands, these Purple and Zeppelin tribute bands, and the guitarists in these bands can learn all the riffs, the solos of Jimmy and Ritchie, but Page and Blackmore couldn't learn and play each other's music? I put up a post a while ago about Jimi Hendrix playing with Miles Davis because there was some talk of them playing together, and I got a lot of, oh, Jimmy would struggle with jazz fusion, he just couldn't play that stuff, he didn't have the ability or technique to grasp it. My reply ran along the lines of something like this. So Tommy Bolin and Jeff Beck, who as far as I'm aware didn't receive any formal training in jazz techniques, jazz fusion, both coming from a rock blues background, they both transitioned to jazz fusion playing with relative ease. Tommy Bolin playing on one of the great jazz fusion albums, Billy Cobham's Spectrum, and Jimi Hendrix couldn't do this? So I think the point I'm trying to make, when people talk passionately about their bands, their favourite guitarists, etc., they kind of get a little bit of tunnel vision and they don't see the big picture. So I think it'll always come down to personal taste, the music you're into, and what you find appealing, to listen to. I mean, some people will bring up technicians like Satriani, Steve Vai, or the speed and virtuosity of Malmsteen. And that's cool. These guys are dazzling players. They're supreme musicians. But it's almost like having that level of technique and proficiency, you kind of lose something in feel. And the same goes for me with Jeff Beck. The things he does are unbelievable. But after a while, I kind of just zone out. So to explore this subject a little deeper, I'm going to give you a few guitarists I like and the reasons why. First up, Steve Gould of Rarebird. Steve was originally the bassist in Rarebird and then switched to guitar around 1972-1973. When I came across Steve and Rarebird, it was the summer of 1974, and from there I must have seen the band play about 6 or 7 times at the Marquee Club in London, up until the band disbanded in early 1975. The band would start a song and then take off into these incredible jams. Steve would then create these wonderful rhythms, probably the best rhythm guitarist I've ever seen. He would intuitively find the spaces to play and drive the band forward, and when the opportunity arose, he'd throw out these short, sharp, intensely melodic solos. A truly great player, but a guy you will never ever hear of. Jimi Hendrix. What can you say? The electric guitar never ever sounded the same again. He came, he saw, he conquered. Lord knows, I'm a voodoo child. Next up, Mr. Robert Fripp. The journey of the King of Crimson is long and varied. Probably King Crimson are one of the only bands that ever truly progresses. Fripp has always walked to the beat of his own drum. To watch Robert play or listen to him talk about music is to be in the presence of a master. This is a man who walked into Bowie's Berlin studios during the recording of Heroes, listened to the song, Heroes, plugged in, and then delivered 3 solos, one after the other, all brilliant. But Robert wasn't satisfied and asked the producer to play them all back at once. The producer protested, but they won't be in sync, they'll be all over the place. But they were perfectly in sync and sounded amazing. Steve Hillage. Steve had all the chops, the virtuosity to be up there with the very best. He once wrote a song called the Salmon Song, and that's the best way to describe his playing. It's like a salmon, leaping and dancing on the water, finding its way back home. Back in the 70s, Steve was always portrayed in the music press as a hippie who talked to trees. But take a look around at his gigs. All the Motorhead, Sabbath, Purple and Zeppelin t-shirts. They all knew this man could play with the best of them. Next up, Randy California. Randy started playing at age 6. His uncle owned the famous Ash Grove music venue in LA, and many of the musicians playing would stay at Randy's house to save on hotel fees. Musicians being what they are, plenty of jams would ensue, and the young Randy California would beg to sit in on them. What an incredible musical education. He ended up playing with hundreds of great blues, jazz, folk, country players. At 15, he played with Jimi Hendrix in New York, learning from a man he called the Master. At 21, he was stepping in for a sick Richie Blackmore after learning the entire Deep Purple set in 3 hours. He could play any style, any genre with ease. Next up, The Edge. No, not The Edge! U2 are the Marmite of rock music. You either love them or you hate them. But let's separate The Edge out of U2 for a minute or two. He's not a gunslinger, he's not a shredder, he's not what you would call a virtuoso. Or is he? Jimmy Page, for example, calls him a sonic architect. He has a sublime use of effects, delay, harmonics, drone strings, and a tearing up of the rulebook. Like I said, even the drone effects he gets echo back to his Irish roots. A friend of mine once said, he doesn't play solos, he just creates these pieces of music where you would normally expect a solo. So these are some of my favourite guitarists. I'd like to know, who is your greatest guitarist, and what do you think about the argument, who is the greatest guitarist? Please post your comments in the comment section below. Take care, stay safe, stay well, and I'll see you in the next video.